Now, there's also something to bring up here that Jennifer Rubin does. She mentions Ruth Ben-Ghat, who's the author of a book called Strongmen, Mussolini to the Present. And as she recalled in a recent interview, quote, since 2015, Trump, has used his rallies as radicalization sites, and over, he told his supporters at these rallies that violence was a good way to solve conflict. How many times, she added, did he say, oh, you know, in the good old days, we used to be able to punch people and nothing happened? So that this discourse of violence, which encouraged January 6th, became part of what January 6th was. The people that want us to believe, and there were a bunch of them at the beginning, are just people who are exercising their First Amendment rights to protest what they saw as an unfair election. Horse shit. Georgia election officials selected Gabriel Sterling. He was an election official. Remember him. He was the first one that really went apeshit, white man, in the state capitol. He held that emotional news conference, and that was when he said, quote, Mr. President, it looks like you likely lost the state of Georgia. We're investigating. What you don't have the ability to do, and you need to step up and say this, is stop inspiring people to commit potential acts of violence. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get shot. Someone's going to get killed. And it's not right. End quote. But this criminal son of a bitch, Donald Trump, he didn't stop. His whole criminal enterprise didn't stop. Not in D.C., not in Georgia, not any place this filthy bastard has begun to face the courts to force him to deal with his criminal activity. Jennifer closes with this. In some legal venue, Trump and his cohorts need to be held accountable for infusing our politics with violence and the threat of violence, for the damage done to Miss Freeman, for the police officers killed and wounded on Capitol Hill, and for the trauma inflicted by the mob they stand accused of orchestrating. That just might be a courthouse, a courtroom in Fulton County, Georgia. Indeed, that would be a service to our democracy and an historical lesson cementing Trump's legacy as a fascist strongman. You go, Jennifer. You tell, and Fani Willis. I find it extremely interesting, I guess is the right word to use. I mentioned this before. There's so many of the people in the legal system who are forcing this rat son of a bitch, Donald Trump, into a situation where he's got to take responsibility for his putrid life, all of it. So many of these people are African American. I love that. And so many, black and white, are women. The women who are saying to this son of a bitch, no, you're not going any further. Grab us by the pussy. Is that what you said? And we love it because you're famous? Well, guess what? Your ass is going down, and the rest of you. I mean, at least that's what I like to think is going on. You will pardon me that indulgence, I hope. NBC is reporting that a key witness against Trump and his two co-defendants at the Mar-A-Lago documents case has changed his previous false testimony and provided new information implicating all three of these bastards, including Trump. after he switched lawyers. That's according to a new court filing by Jack Smith's office. I'm talking about Yusel Taveras, the director of information technology at Mar-A-Lago. And he changed his testimony in July, and we're just finding out about it now, of course, regarding efforts to delete security camera footage of Trump's Florida club after he changed from a lawyer paid for by Trump's Save America PAC to a public defender. That's according to a filing that was made public yesterday, Tuesday. The revised testimony led to last month's superseding indictment against Trump and his two co-defendants. Well, now we know where that information came from. Now, Mr. Taveras decided to change lawyers after he learned he was being investigated for making false statements during his previous grand jury testimony in Washington, D.C. So in other words, this guy started to realize, this Trump son of a bitch is going to cause me to go to jail for the rest of my life. The filing by Jack Smith's office said this, quote, immediately after receiving new counsel, Trump employee 4, that would be Taveras, retracted his prior false testimony and provided information that implicated Nauta, that's Trump's body man, Carlos de Oliveira, and Trump in their efforts to delete security camera footage as set forth in the superseding indictment. Aha! The truth is starting to come out. I guess Mr. Taveras realized that he was playing with somebody, Donald Trump, who would throw his ass under a bus, a train, at a moment's notice. So why was he, Taveras, putting his life in prison at risk? Now, the filing identifies Taveras as Trump employee number 4, but NBC recently reported that Taveras is number 4. His now former lawyer is Stanley Woodward. Woodward also represents Trump co-defendant Walt Nauta and a variety of other Trump world figures, his crime syndicate, which is a clear indication that this lawyer was more than willing, indication to me anyway, more than willing to allow and support the lies from Mr. Taveras and anybody else who wanted to lie, until these witnesses started to realize what they were risking with their lies. Now, this attorney, Woodward, declined comment yesterday on the new filing to NBC News, and NBC has reached out to Mr. Taveras for comment. More than just, hey, why did you change attorneys? Prosecutors outlined this change in testimony from Mr. Taveras from lies to the truth in a motion on their request for a hearing on the attorney, Woodward's possible conflicts. Yeah, no shit. And the prosecutor said that during the course of their investigation, they obtained, quote, evidence from Trump employee Carlos de Oliveira that he tried to enlist the director of information technology, that's Taveras, from Mar-A-Lago, to delete Mar-a-Lago security footage after the grand jury in the District of Columbia had issued a subpoena for that footage, end quote. So there's your obstruction charge. The filing went on to say, quote, when Trump employee 4, Taveras, testified before the grand jury in the District of Columbia in March 2023, he repeatedly denied or claimed not to recall any contacts or conversations about the security footage at Mar-a-Lago. End quote. And then by late June, prosecutors, quote, advised Trump employee number 4, through his former attorney, Woodward, that he was the target of a grand jury investigation in the District of Columbia into whether he committed perjury, end quote, which up to that point he obviously had. Well, I think that was enough to scare Mr. Taveras straight and make him fire the attorney, hire a public defender, if that's the right word, hire, and now he is testifying to the truth about what Trump and Nauta and Oliveras and the rest of these son of a bitches did in their attempt to obstruct the damning evidence of what Trump told them to do. Hide it, destroy it, erase it. Remember what he said, what Trump said about Hillary Clinton all those years ago, about trying to delete material from her server? Do you remember? Of course you do. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.